What's going on? Is Anton from antondaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. Hey, this port strike is going to have one of the biggest economic impacts to the United States of America. And if they don't hurry up and get a deal done, then it's going to be absolutely horrible. Now, I see it from both sides. On one front, you have the workers, right? And the workers are saying, listen, the cost of living is going up and you guys need us. It really is nothing more than that. It's not like they're struggling, right? Because if you listen to the majority of port workers, if you have a conversation with people on the internet, if you start to look at some of their TikToks, because right now they popping, right? Right now it's important, and people are concerned. If you listen to the port workers, they're gonna tell you, listen, base salary, the majority of us longshoremen, we come in making $80,000, $90,000 a year base. And then after your base with overtime, we can make $200,000, $300,000 a year, depending on your position. And for a lot of people, that's unfathomable because as a crane operator, right, that's chilling, they like, listen, how are we gonna be able to justify you making $200,000, $300,000 a year and you saying that you want an up to 77% raise over the span of 6 years, which is the equivalent of about 12.8% a year, right? And nobody is getting that type of money, especially when you consider the skill set, right? When you consider the skill set, meaning that they don't have to have a degree, you don't have to go to school for it, none of that type of stuff. But at the same time, the consumers are saying, listen, I don't want you costing the American economy up to $5 billion a day. And then for every day that port workers are on strike, it can basically put us behind 1 or 2 weeks. So let's say they strike for a week straight or 2 weeks, which is the equivalent of about 14 days. That means that you're going to be months in the hole. Goods, services, lumber, fruit, cars, construction equipment, steel, anything that comes in along the entire East Coast, 45,000 workers, they saying they want a 77% increase. Now on the flip side, right, you gotta argue on behalf of the consumers because the consumers, they don't give a fuck, right? They on some, I want my stuff and I want it now. I'm not trying to hear what you're talking about. Get on up out of here, give me my money, you know what I'm saying? But people will flip on you. And that's what the workers, the port workers are experiencing right now. They're experiencing people that's saying, listen, I would love to make that type of money. That's why the migrants is gonna come in and replace y'all. You ain't even got no degree. This is why. And so at first, they was in favor of workers across America making more money because it was the CEOs that was too greedy. Now, the port workers and the longshoremen are starting to catch hell from the general consumers because when they compare themselves to you and they suffering, and then you have the potential to make $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, they can't justify it because you then become the enemy, even though at first they were supposedly on your side, right? And so on one side, you can say, man, you know what I'm saying? They trying to cripple America. On the other side, you can say, well, I thought that y'all was advocating for unions because when we was having this conversation about the auto workers, y'all was saying that the CEOs make too much money, the American economy, affordable living, and then you started to see Stellantis workers and workers across multiple different industries start to be upset, and then they're basically being outsourced over to Mexico, which is one of the things that Trump is trying to prevent, and people can't relate no more because they're like, oh, you make way more than us, whereas you had McDonald's workers over there in California, and they was basically advocating for them to make $20 to $25 an hour. So it's a tale between both sides, right? How can you limit the amount of money that somebody can make? But at the same time, people are saying you're being too greedy, especially considering that we got an election cycle coming up, and I'm gonna get to that shortly. We got an election cycle coming up, and you looking to shut down the entire America. One half of the whole country that gets in the majority of the resources and things that we use as everyday Americans are looking to shut down the ports, and the only thing that we're gonna have left is the whole left side of the country, which is the West Coast, and they can't handle that type of volume. Two things that the port workers are basically advocating against, right? They're advocating against, or they're advocating for. They're advocating for job security. The way that they advocate for job security is to basically say, listen, we don't want you to automate our jobs, which is the whole point of technology, is to make things easier, is to reduce problems with regard to safety, and it's to increase profitability. That's what capitalism is. But the port workers and the longshoremen are saying, we don't want you taking our jobs away because we tired of seeing our buddies' jobs be eliminated through automation. Now, on the flip side, the companies in maritime is saying, look, 17 people died last year working the ports, 45,000 of y'all, and we need to innovate, we need to get faster. We tired of paying y'all $300,000 a year for y'all to slow down truck drivers and stuff like that, and it's slowing up the money. And so it's a catch-22. They trying to protect they union, right? And the companies are trying to increase profitability through automation and technology. Now, again, you got to also take this into consideration. In the negotiation, they negotiated up to a 55% raise over the course of the contract, which would be 6 years. Meaning that by the time that the contract ended, similar to UAW, similar to, I think it was UPS drivers and stuff like that, that would be the raise. And then you would come back to the table and you renegotiate. And so when we talking about inflation, when we talk about the cost of living, there's more factors than just cost outright. There's logistics, there's cost of paying workers, there's importing it, where we get our products from. There is, you know, shrinkage, which is a loss of products. There's management, there's innovation, there's cost cutting. There's so many different things that go into it. So even when I see, because politics play a huge role in it too, even when I see the people that we're trying to elect, when y'all hear them talking about joy and peace and friendships and, oh, can we all just get along? No, there's an economic crisis. And if you ever needed some form of leadership, if Kamala Harris wanted to prove to the people that she is worthy of becoming president of the United States of America, the same way that they were advocating for and they wanted to step in when it came to the Biden administration, getting the endorsement of the UAW. He wanted to go to the picket lines. He didn't actually do anything. He just went to the picket lines and he wanted to make sure that he got the endorsement. We know that the Teamsters is backing up the longshoremen, and the Teamsters also did not endorse a Democratic candidate for the first time since 1996. So she lost that endorsement. And this is much more impactful than the auto workers, the UAW and the auto workers. This is much more impactful because guess what? You don't have no products coming in. You slow down the economy. Ain't no dealership, ain't no steel, ain't no cars, ain't none of that. Everything stops. And so I would love to see a conversation amongst the candidates, which I already know that Trump is a businessman, so he look at things from a financial perspective. He understands the economy much better than Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, who has no private experience in that. Every single dollar that they've ever made has come from the taxpayers. And so I would love to see a real test of economic policy and how they would solve for it. And guess what? Kamala Harris don't even got to get into a debate. She ain't even got to talk about it. All she got to do is do it. If you think that you can solve for the problems that's happening in this economy, and if you so great in your economic policy actually can help the people, then show us. Get on the front line, help negotiate this thing, and have a conversation and get our ports back open, which basically they on strike now, but get our ports back open and see if you can be an intermediary between the companies and the longshoremen to find a solid middle ground that would actually enable us to continue to have the United States of America popping off. Otherwise, you're going to really see what inflation look like. And obviously, it's going to be a lot more people that's affected rather than not, because once the trickle-down economics, because I know y'all don't like to say trickle-down economics, once trickle-down economics starts to take place, guess who's going to suffer as a result of it? You. Even if you're not a longshoreman, your industry more than likely will be affected by it. I love you. I appreciate you. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. It's a phenomenal product. And then last but not least, make sure you come and kick it with me in person. We're going to talk politics. We're going to talk money. We're going to talk relationships. We're going to talk all of that with me and my Let's Rant About It friends. Come and kick it with me in Atlanta on November 2nd and then Detroit on December 14th. And then we're going to try to do a Patreon meetup event as a result of it. Remember, best day to join a Patreon is the beginning of the month. It's the beginning of the month. Make sure you do so. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.